This video is brought to you by
What's up, kings and queens? It's your girl, Charlotte Moore. As always, we give thanks for another day, you dig? So as the CEO and founder of Motivational More, we take pride in working with incredible creative entrepreneurs. And today, we are shooting a campaign for cool green clothing founded by the one and only AC Green. So the vibrational energy of this line is all about street vibes, a growth mindset, hustle. So today, we are highlighting this, guys, the Baltimore Cool Green Snapback. How cute is this? Look at this. So we're going to have so much fun on the shoot. And I'm telling you, follow cool green clothing. It's so important for us to support our entrepreneurs. There's so much talent in Baltimore. And as a creative entrepreneur myself, I know how hard it is. And I love to see just people going out there and going for their dreams. So let's get it. Bless up.
What is going on, YouTube fam? This your boy Tony 2Times, and we back with another episode of the Baltimore Way, man. Before I start, be sure to tap that like button. Definitely watch this video to the end to hear the full story and all the details in the case. For all my day one supporters, y'all already know it's all love. Thanks for tuning back in. If you're new to the fam and you feeling the content, feel free to subscribe. Definitely tap that notification bell so you can be notified every time we drop a new video. Let's get right into the story. In cities all over America, unfortunately, violent crimes have been on the rise. To the point in homicide cases, if police don't got witnesses or evidence right there at that time, the case either goes cold or gets thrown in a pile. The sad thing about that is when conviction rates are low and bodies keep dropping, law enforcement start to get thirsty and reaching to lock up anybody without real probable cause, just to say they solved the case and hope to get a conviction, even if it is the wrong person. We hear so many stories of people spending years or decades in prison for crimes just for it to come out later on it was bad police work and the person they thought did it was really innocent. It makes you wonder how many people have been railroaded by the system just for a conviction or so the police and prosecutors can look good, like they are solving cases. And in certain situations, a confession can be coerced if a person is not aware of tactics or games that the police play to get you to talk, especially if it's a serious charge in which they actually can get away with telling you a straight lie. Like, tell us you did it and you can go home right now. Most people know that's all detective talk, but some might not be up on the games that police play or never dealt with police at all and fall for it. Now they are charged with something they really did not do and had to clear their name. And on this episode of the Baltimore Way, we will talk about a man accused of hitting his own homie back in 2013 in a fight to try to clear his name. Back in 2013, at the time, 23-year-old Dominic Faulkner and his homeboy, 22-year-old David Womack, were close, to the point they even called each other cousins. Dominic, who is a father and grew up in West Baltimore, was just a typical working man who was trying to take care of his kids. But as a kid, at just 6 years old, he would be placed into a foster home himself due to family issues. As he got older, Dominic was classified as having certain mental disabilities that kept him from processing information or learning as fast as others. But that wouldn't stop the young man. He would meet a mentor, a jeweler, a man named Tom Smith, back in 2006 at a Saturday morning breakfast hosted by a program called Young Life Urban. At about 17 years old, he got his first job and pretty much stayed out the way and out of trouble, except a petty drug charge at the age of 20. Fast forward back to 2013, BPD would receive a call of a vehicle crash on March 4th on the 2800 block of Moser Street. Just about 12 midnight, a silver 2000 Benz hit a tree and a man was laying inside unconscious. Medics performed CPR but quickly realized the victim had been shot with a single bullet that went through his shoulder and unfortunately traveled through his heart and lungs. The man was pronounced gone at the scene. As police started investigating, just a block away from the scene, they found a gold medallion with a cross on it, thought to belong to the victim. At the time, the man was labeled as a John Doe. The man's phone was taken off his body, and the detective took it home with him. The next morning, it would start ringing repeatedly, followed by multiple text messages stating good morning. Yo, where you at? You ready to hit the car wash? The detective called the number back from his own cell phone when the man answered. When asked who he was, the man stated Dominic Faulkner. Police asked him what was the man's name phone he was calling, who at the time was the victim, labeled John Doe. Dominic, not knowing what was going on, stated that was his cousin's phone, David Womack. Detectives hung up and came up with a plan to track down Dominic for questioning, still not telling him about the death of his friend. As days went by, police waited for surveillance footage and DNA from the crime scene to come back, with no leads on the hit at the time. They decided to reach back out to Dominic and plans to meet up with him at a local store. In later interviews with the Baltimore Sun, Dominic stated 2 men met him and told him they were telemarketers, not detectives. Started asking him questions and asked could they go back to his apartment to talk. Before then, taking him to Western District Police Station Homicide Unit, where Dominic realized what was happening and his homie had been hit. Detectives would cut on a tape recorder and start asking questions. It was March 13th, 2013. Dominic stated the night before David was hit, the two were cooling, driving around the city, and even went to a club. But Dominic said David would eventually pick up a young lady and drop him off at his apartment around 9:30 p.m. 3 hours before detectives said David was shot. Dominic said he called David a little bit later to make sure he was good, and he said yeah, he was on his way home. By this time, BPD had received the surveillance footage back that allegedly showed a man, a woman, and a car. They showed a still picture of that to Dominic, in which he stated, I don't know the people, but the car looked familiar. It looked like David's. Then the interview took a turn. Detective stated, you told us you didn't want to meet, or you didn't want any parts of this, right? In which Dominic stated yes. They then asked if he knew anything about the hit, and if he did, would he tell them? In which again, he stated yes, but I don't know nothing. Detectives kept pressing before asking if something was wrong, and said the man looked like he was about to cry. Then the recording would stop. But detectives kept talking. In later interviews, the young man stated they told him he would never see his kids again, and if he confessed to shooting his friend, he could go home free. The tape recording was off for about a whole hour before detectives cut it back on, and by this time, Dominic had identified himself and his girlfriend as the man and woman in the surveillance video. He also gave a detailed account of allegedly hitting his friend, stating in the confession him and his girlfriend was riding around with David when they stopped to get a chicken box. He then claimed him and his girl started arguing. Then David got in the mix, in which he told the man to mind his business before yanking his gold chain off his neck. After that, he stated the two got out the car and had a few more words. Then he claimed David was trying to hit him and pulled out a blick. Dominic then stated he took the blick from the man and shot him once in the arm before David got back in the car and drove off. He then stated he dumped the gun in a sewer drain, and then the next day he called David just to make sure he was okay. Detectives followed the information but found no signs of a chicken box in David's car and no gun in the drain. And that was strange, since it would have been too heavy to float away. Police also tried to get a better copy of the surveillance video from the other grainy one that they had showed the young man. But even though they had no physical evidence with the confession, Dominic was eventually charged with the murder of his homie. His girlfriend was questioned after that, and with hearing what detectives said, she could not believe it, stating her and Dominic was in bed when the shooting took place. When asked why he would tell them that, she was stating, y'all must not know about his condition. He had learning disabilities and probably doesn't understand none of this. But Dominic was still taken into custody. While locked up, he was mentally evaluated, showing his IQ was in one of the lowest percentage, leading to questions about his understanding and about what was going on. Dominic came up with a solution and called on the one person he thought could help him, his mentor, Mr. Tom. He told the man he didn't understand why he was locked up. He didn't murder anybody, and he wanted to see his kids. Dominic stated, "They told me if I confessed, they would let me go." Having a close relationship with Dominic, Mr. Tom believed everything he was saying and agreed to help. Using his resources, reaching out to lawyers, as they started digging deep into the case, they realized there was no evidence, and during the alleged confession, the tape cut off for almost an hour. And when it came back on, you hear Dominic with a shaky voice and mispronouncing certain things, making a confession. Then he stated he caught the number 15 bus at Emerson Avenue after he shot David and went home. Eventually, after lawyers fought for 19 months, they were able to use certain motions and Dominic's IQ results to get him released on home monitoring. But the case wasn't over yet. About 14 months would go by, and in May 2016, Dominic would go to trial. A psychologist showed his IQ scores, which indicated Dominic was high risk of being coerced into making a false confession. Lawyers asked the police about the missing hour of the recording and about physical evidence. But once detectives took the stand, they stated it doesn't take a genius to shoot a gun, and they were helping Dominic in a self-defense claim. Dominic lawyers fought for the confession to be thrown out of court and won. Now, without that information, detectives tried to argue that Dominic was calling David the next day to try to cover up his tracks and knew too many details about the hit. The trial lasted 5 days, and the jurors took 6 hours to come back with a verdict, leading to all charges being dropped against Dominic and him being acquitted for the hit. No one from David's family came to court, being that both his parents passed away 2 months apart back in 2011, and other family members lived out of town. His girl at the time and mother of his infant child was told the person confessed and was caught on tape. She never knew no one was not convicted, and her baby father's case was unsolved. The BPD detectives who interviewed Dominic, one left the force and the other transferred to another unit. In a later interview, Dominic spoke on how scared he was, thinking he would get life in prison for something he didn't do. And Mr. Tom stated he was just glad he could help a good person. Rest in peace to David. I send my deepest prayers and condolences to his surviving family members. More of this story, it's unfortunate. Police sometimes jump the gun to get a conviction. To a lot of them, it's just a job. They don't care about the victim or the person being accused, innocent or guilty. It's just another closed case. It makes you wonder, how many people with mental health or other conditions are serving life for something they didn't do and wasn't as lucky as Dominic. But hey, that's the Baltimore way. Man, crazy story, you feel me? Rest in peace to David. Y'all heard it all for y'allself, man. You know, I'm glad that, Dominic got the justice that he deserved. If he was innocent, if he ain't had nothing to do with it, they said, his IQ was a little too low to understand what was going on. And I feel like that'd be the case in a lot of situations. But y'all already know, man. Leave it in the comments. I ain't gonna talk y'all head off. This is another episode of the Baltimore Way. I appreciate you if you made it to the end. This your boy Tony 2 times. Love, fam. I'm out.